Hey everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Google for EDU online conference. My name is Michael Fricano, and I'm a tech integration specialist for a private school in Hawaii. And this session I call Hack the Classroom, getting hands-on with add-ons in Google Drive. They're it's one of my most favorite features in Drive. It adds a lot of new and amazing functionality to docs, sheets, and forms. And I'm going to show you 3 of my favorite add-ons today. So if you're not there already, you can access my presentation from the Google for EDU page, as well as the Q&A. Feel free to say hi in the Q&A. Tell me where you're from. If you already use add-ons, share with me some of your favorite add-ons. I'm going to give you another opportunity to share your favorite add-ons with me in a different way, but say hi in the Q&A. I want to see who's out there. And I'm going to share my screen now so that you can see my presentation. And there it is. So you can access the presentation from the EDU page, but you can also go to that bit.ly link down there in the bottom, bit.ly/hacktheclass, where this presentation is located, as well as a bunch of other resources. And we'll talk more about that a little later. But with the short amount of time I have today, there are so many great add-ons, but I could only pick a couple. So I picked one of my favorites for Google Docs, one of my favorites for Google Sheets, and one of my favorite add-ons for Google Forms. And I'm going to try to demo those for you as well. And I very much want this to be a hands-on session. So if you're on a computer and you're in the presentation, there will be some links that will allow you to gain access to some templates that will allow you to practice these add-ons yourself. So I'd very much like for you to do that as I'm showing them to you today. And now this presentation will be available after today as well on my website at that bit.ly down there at the bottom. So feel free to bookmark it, save it. You can refer back to it later. And all my contact information is there as well. So feel free to contact me afterwards. So let's move on. First of all, if you're new to add-ons or you have very little experience, here's how you would access add-ons, whether you're in Google Docs or Google Sheets. The way to access add-ons in Google Forms is a little different, and I'll talk about that a little later in the presentation. But for Docs and Sheets, the add-ons menu is located inside the Docker sheet, and it's right next to the Help menu option. And I'll show that to you in a second. But you would click on the add-ons drop-down menu, and if you want to get any new add-ons, which you might do today if you're following along and getting hands-on, you would click Get Add-ons, and then you're taken to the add-ons directory where you can install any add-ons that you like. And I'm going to show you a couple today. So really quick, the way to see that, so I'm going to zoom in here so you can see that better. So I'm in a Google Doc as an example, and the add-ons menu is right up here between the table option and the help option. Okay, and you click on add-ons, and I already have some add-ons that I use quite frequently. If you're new to add-ons, your list is probably empty because you've never used any before. And the way to get new add-ons is at the bottom of the menu here. You click on Get Add-ons, and then you're inside the add-ons directory here. Okay, and so I'm going to be showing you a couple of my favorites today. Check back. So when you do find an add-on that you like, you would click the free button. Most add-ons are just free, completely free. There are a couple of add-ons that are what we call freemium add-ons, meaning it's a company trying to sell you a product, and they'll create an add-on that demos a couple of features of that product, and you get access to a couple of those features for free. In some cases for a limited time, like a 30-day trial, and then to gain access to the rest of it, you have to pay for it. The add-ons that I'm going to show you today are all completely free, meaning you don't have to pay anything for them. And they're education focused, and they're some of the best add-ons for the classroom. But you would click that free button. Every add-on requires a different set of permissions for your Google account. And that screen may look like this. There may be a longer list of requests or a shorter list. And if you're comfortable with the permission request for that add-on, you would click Allow. And then it'll automatically become part of your add-ons menu. And you will always have access to it in the future for any new docs or sheets or forms that you create. Now let's talk a little bit about what those permissions mean. So every add-on is different. Depending on what the add-on does, it may need to access your drive. It may need to be able to create new documents for you or new sheets. It may need to access different parts of your account. It just depends on what it does. But rest easy, because there are some guidelines that add-on creators do have to follow in order for their add-ons to become available in the directory. So first of all, if you look on the right side here, add-ons are they're all reviewed by Google. So it's not just an open marketplace where anybody can upload an add-on and make it available to the public. They have to be reviewed by Google first. So they have to go through this review process. And Google checks the back end, they check the code, they check to make sure it's not malicious, that it's not taking information that it doesn't really need, and it's not accessing your account in ways that are unnecessary. So they have to go through that process first. And if Google finds the add-on to be clean and worthy, then it'll accept it, and then it'll become available in the directory. Otherwise, it goes back to the developer to make any adjustments or changes. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, each add-on permission request is different. It just depends on what that add-on does. And there are some add-ons that may need to store data on separate servers. Most add-ons don't need to do this, but in some cases there are add-ons, and they will tell you that here in this list before you allow it. But they may need to store certain kinds of data on separate servers outside of the Google server. So just be aware of that when you're using new add-ons. And add-on developers do also have to follow an apps script terms of service. And that's linked here if you're interested in what that terms of service is. So there are some guidelines and rules that developers do have to follow, and if they break those rules, there are obviously consequences for that. Okay, but in any case, even though it's reviewed and goes through a process and they have to abide by terms of service, it's always a good idea to vet an add-on yourself as the teacher, and or consult your IT office or your administration, okay? Before you give students access to it, or before you use it yourself within your school's network or your school domain. It's always a good idea to vet, to test out the add-on, to make sure it works the way you want, and it doesn't affect your domain or your network in any negative way. So always do that. Always vet the things that you're going to use in your classroom before you let your students use them. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite Google Docs add-ons first. And I'll take a look at the Q&A a little later when I get through my add-ons, and then we'll address some of the questions. I see some really good questions being asked in the Q&A, and I'll try to get back to those at the very end of the Q&A. If I don't, though, I'll address the questions at the end of this conference when the Q&A becomes available for everybody afterwards. Okay. So my most favorite Google Docs add-on is one called the Highlight Tool. And I really love this add-on. It's super powerful, really great for students. And if you want to practice using that add-on, there's a link here. It says Let's Practice. So if you're in the presentation, you can click on this link, and it'll take you to a Google Docs template that I've created for the purposes of this presentation. And it'll ask you if you want to make a copy. It's called Highlight Tool GDoc Add-on. Okay. So if you click the Make a Copy option, it'll generate a copy that you are the owner of, and so you'll have full control over this template. And you want to go and get the Highlight Tool add-on. So as I showed you before, you're going to go to the Add-ons menu, and you're going to go to Get Add-ons. And the quickest way to find the add-on is to do a search. So you can click in the search box here to search for Highlight Tool. And it's this first, it should be the first one that pops up here. It's the yellow highlighter with the blue background. It's by a developer named Jason Chin. He actually creates a couple of really powerful and useful add-ons. And this one is one of my favorites of his. But for you, this is your first time, you're going to click on that blue Free button. and then go ahead and allow it to access permissions to your account in order to do certain things. And you can take a look at what those permissions are if you like. I already have it in my add-ons menu. It's right here. And that process of clicking the free button and allowing it access to your account is a one-time thing. So you and your students would only have to do that once. And for any new documents or any future documents, it'll always be in this add-ons list for you to access later on. Okay. But once you do have it in the menu, you'll see it here listed in alphabetical order. And you can go ahead and click on the Start button. And most add-ons contain the side panel here, like you see here on my screen. So the way this works is, let's say, for example, your students are gathering research in a Google Doc for a research project. So I've given you some example research here on Christopher Columbus. I've pulled this information from a website. And of course, the next step in that research process is for students to analyze and start to gather the important pieces of information that they may need for their project. And one way we do that is we have them highlight the text, right? So highlight keywords, highlight phrases, and obviously we can do that in a Google Doc, but this add-on goes one step further, which I think is super powerful. But before we get to that really cool last step, we have to create the highlighters here. And you can create new highlighters by clicking on the blue button. And what I really love about this add-on, this tool, is that you have access to the entire color wheel. I don't know if you guys can see my color wheel, but when you click that color button, you have access to all of the colors that exist in the world here, and you can adjust the shade and the darkness and the lightness there. And then what I really like is you can give your highlighter a name. Right? So in the case of researching European explorers, I may want my students to look for information on early life. And then I can add a new one, change the color, oops, and then call it, let's see, what they found, and then so on. So you can create as many highlighters as you want. I've never reached a limit to the number of highlighters. And there's virtually an unlimited number of colors that you can choose from. And if I make a mistake, I can reverse out. And then when I create, they get added to this default list over here. And I've got some highlighters that I've created in the past. So if I were to close this whole document down and then go on the next day and open up the document and open up the highlight tool, all of these add-ons would be saved and they would still exist in my default set over here, which is also really helpful. Okay, so now I can start to, as a student, I can start to highlight my page. And I'm just going to highlight sort of freely here just to show you an example. So I click and drag, and then choose one of my highlighter colors in the list over here, and then oops, and then move on. So feel free to just highlight a bunch of text. Oops. So I'm going to choose some yellows and some light greens here, and I'll choose some reds. And I'm highlighting in random spots because I want you to see what this does a little later on. Okay, choose one of those. So I have a couple different colors here, highlighted all over the page. Each color means something specific, whether it's information about their early life or where they traveled to or what they found on their journeys, on their explorations. Okay, now this is pretty simple. We could do this without the highlight tool, right? We could highlight the page rather easily. But the one thing I love about this is the option down here at the bottom that allows you to export these colors out. So as a student, I've deemed, right, what's important for my project, and everything else is not necessary to me anymore. So it would be really nice if I could easily extract or export all of the highlighted marks so that I can move on to the next step in my project. And this tool does this really well. And the one option I really love is exporting these highlights by color. So if I click on the by color option, I get a pop-up box, and I can export these into a brand new document, or I can export them into this existing document, and it'll put it at the bottom of my page. And I'm going to choose this document and export. Okay. And it'll tell you exporting finished, refresh the document. So I need to refresh it. Try again. And watch what happens when I refresh this doc. This is what I love about this. So if I scroll past my research and go to the bottom, oh, it's just loading for me. So here's what it does. It creates a labeling key. So it pulls the colors and their titles and creates a key for me. So what does green mean? What is yellow? What is light green? What does red mean? And then below that, it creates a very neat and organized table of all of the information that I highlighted. And it organizes it by the colors that I chose, as well as the titles of those highlighter colors. Isn't that awesome? That's the one thing I love about this add-on is its ability to do this, right? Really quickly, really efficiently. And when I've used this in the past, it just saves students so much time and effort in trying to organize the information that they deem necessary for their project into this really neat and clean table here. And then they can move on to the next step of their research project, whatever that next step may be. Okay, so that's really powerful in itself. A couple other things you can do here is you can actually, as a teacher, you can set up the colors and the titles that you want all of your students to have. And then you can share those highlighters with your students. So if I created a set of highlighters and gave them some titles, I can choose the highlight share option, and it's going to generate this document for me that looks like this. Okay, and then in this document contains the hexadecimal codes and the titles for those highlighters. And you don't really have to know what all this means, but all you have to do is share this document with others, and then give the other people the right to view this document. And then they would, on their end, choose the option to import the highlighters. It'll look for that special document, and it'll pull in the colors and the titles that you created for them. And you could very easily, if you're a user of Google Classroom, you could upload this to a new assignment and give all your students the right to view, and then they would very easily and quickly have access to this document. And then they can import those colors, so that this way all of your students are using the same colors with the same titles, so that they can all be collaborating and working together in the classroom on their projects. That's another really powerful feature built in to the highlight tool. And that's the highlight tool. It's one of my favorite Google Docs add-ons, and it's completely free. Really awesome tool. So let me know what you think about it in the Q&A. I'd really love to know your feedback on that. That's called Highlight Tool. So let's see, the next, and I've got some screenshots in the presentation in case you want, in case you need to be walked through those steps again and what all the different tools and features are. There's a couple of screenshots on the next couple of slides there. And then because I have limited time, I can't go through all of these awesome add-ons, but here's a collection of other Google Docs add-ons that you may want to check out on your own time. Copy comments is a really quick way to copy the comments of one document into another so that you have an archive of those comments. And there's EasyBib for quick citation builders and bibliography and works cited pages. And then there's some rubric and assessment tools. One's called JoeZoo and the other's called Orange Slice. That you may want to check out. These are some of my other favorite Google Docs add-ons. Okay, let's take a look at my favorite Google Sheets add-ons. Google Sheet add-on. So the one I wanted to share with you guys today is a really powerful one called Essay Metrics. So if you teach English, or you have a couple projects through the year where your students are writing essays or research papers, this can be a really powerful one for both the teacher for assessment purposes and the student for self-assessment purposes, and also peer assessment. So Essay Metrics, so a couple things if you want to try this out for yourself. Before you use Essay Metrics, you have to collect your students' essays in Google Docs, in a Google Docs, in a folder in your drive first. Okay, so you would have your students type out their essay or their research papers in a Google Doc, have them share it with you. You could use Classroom for this as well, and organize all those Google Docs into a Drive folder. And I've created an example here. So this, if you click on this, add this folder to your Drive, I've got some student examples in a folder already. Just add that folder to your Drive so you can run through this as an example today. And then click on the Let's Practice, and that'll allow you to make a copy of a blank spreadsheet. Okay, and this is what I love about this. You start, all you have to do is start with a blank, empty spreadsheet, and the add-on does all of the rest for you. This is really cool. Okay, so once you get into that spreadsheet, you want to get the add-on first. And the add-ons menu is located next to Help again. And we're in Google Sheets this time, so this is a little different from Docs. You're going to get a different set of add-ons. And search for Essay Metrics. And it looks like this. It's by a great guy named M. Trussell. He built some pretty amazing education-focused add-ons. So click on the Free button. Allow it to gain access to the permissions it's requesting. And then you'll find it in your add-ons menu. And again, that's a one-time thing, so Essay Metrics will always be available in future spreadsheets if you want to do this over and over again. And so when you're ready, you're going to go Essay Metrics, and you want to get file information from. And there's a couple things you can do. You can have it analyzed, or you can have it gather metric data from a single student's file, just one student. If you've gathered all of your students' documents into one folder, you can have it access the Drive folder. And it even, this is great, it's got Google Classroom integration. So if you're using an assignment and you're asking students to upload their Google Doc to the Classroom assignment, Essay Metrics will actually locate your Classroom folders in Drive, and you can access student work that way as well. For today, we're going to use the Drive folder option. Okay, I'm just going to jump back. Make sure I know where the folder is. Okay, so that folder that you added to your Drive a little earlier, it's called Essay Metrics Samples. So you can do a quick search for that if you aren't able to locate it. And what you want to do, don't double click on the folder to open it. Just click it once to highlight and select. And as soon as you select, Essay Metrics is going to do its magic. It's going to generate all of the columns and the headers. It's going to pull in the student documents, and it's going to generate a very useful list of data based on each individual student's essay work. So here's what it does. So based on what the student wrote in the document or typed, it's going to count the words, count the number of sentences, count all the characters, not including spaces. This is really cool. It does an ARI, or a reading age. So what reading age are your students writing at? In this case, they're writing at a reading age of 8.8 or 8.5. Average sentence length in words. So average sentence length is 5.4 words per sentence. And then they'll track simple connective and complex connective word counts, and you can click on these links to access a list of those types of words. It even tracks sentences that don't have capital letters in the beginning, if that's something you're working on with your younger students or older students. It counts the number of paragraphs, not including titles, and the average sentences per paragraph, as well as the number of times the document has been revised. So every time a student goes into their document after this and makes changes to it, refreshing the spreadsheet will adjust the count here for the number of revisions, as well as when it was last updated. So it automatically gathers all of that data for you as the teacher. And then at the very end of the spreadsheet, you have these green columns that allow you as the teacher to provide feedback to the student. So you can type in information into these cells here for each student in each row. And then what you can do afterwards, if you go to the extra tools, you can send an email summary to each student. And that summary will contain all of that student's essay metrics data, as well as any information that you included in these green cells here. So you can give them their own metrics data, as well as individual feedback for their essay. So essay metrics, again, it's one of my favorites for the English class. And I've got some screenshots here on how it works. And here's what the email summary looks like. It's on slide number 15. So it'll give the students that metrics data, as well as any comments you left in the green column. So super powerful spreadsheet, and it's really easy to use. I mean, if you hear the word spreadsheet and you cringe because you don't know how to work spreadsheets, like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to start with a blank spreadsheet, and the add-on does all of the heavy lifting for you. So really great for those of you who aren't spreadsheet experts. Okay, and I got a couple minutes left, so I wanted to show you one Google form. I'm sorry, here's some extra Google Sheets add-ons. Some of you were mentioning in the Q&A about Flubaroo, one of my all-time favorite quick assessment tools for Google Forms and spreadsheets. There's a couple more that allow you to do that. And then I got to have some other, some really interesting spreadsheet add-ons here that you may want to check out a little later. Okay, so one of my favorite Google Forms add-ons, before I get to that, Forms looks a little different than Docs and Sheets. So the way to access Forms, and the way to access add-ons, I'm sorry, is the process is a little different because of the way Forms looks different from Docs and Sheets. So you would click on the three dots, the More menu, and you look for the puzzle icon to access your add-ons. And then you get the add-ons directory, and when you choose them, any add-ons you've added will be located in the add-ons, or that little puzzle icon in the top corner of your form. So it's very, the way to access is very different from Docs and Sheets. I just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay, and of course you would go through the process of clicking the free button and clicking allow for it to access your account. But the form add-on I wanted to show you is a very simple add-on, but it can save teachers a lot of time, and that's Form Limiter. And you can make a copy of the form that I've created here. So if you click that link, this is a form that everybody has access to, but don't mess with the form. Don't mess with this shared form. I want you to go in and make a copy of the form for yourself so that you have your own form to play around with. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a copy of it. So please make sure you make a copy first if you want to play around with this yourself. Okay, and as I mentioned before, you click on the More menu. You go to Add-ons. It takes you to the add-on directory, and you search for Form Limiter, which is one word, and click on the free, and give it permission to allow it permission to access your account. And then once you do that, you'll get the puzzle icon here. That'll contain any add-ons that you've added. So I'm going to choose Form Limiter. Okay, and so the way this works is when you create a form, let's say you're creating a formative assessment for students, and you're taking it at the end of the day, and you want to make sure that the students can't access the form after class ends, right? So typically you would have to go onto your computer, open up the form, go into the menu, and turn off the form, right? That's a manual process. You have to remember to do that as a teacher. And let's face it, we're pretty busy people in our classrooms, and those types of things often get forgotten. So what Form Limiter does is it allows you to set the form to turn off automatically, either based on a time and date or based on the number of responses it collects. So here I can choose two options. I can limit it to a date and time or a max number of responses. So let's say, again, I'm giving this form at the end of the day, today, and I want it to automatically turn off at 3 p.m. And I can customize the submissions are closed message here if a student accesses it afterwards, and then save and enable. Okay. And once that's enabled, the form will automatically turn off at 3 p.m. this afternoon, so that I don't have to remember to do it, and I don't have to go through the manual process of turning the form off myself. So it's a really simple add-on, but can save a teacher a lot of time. Sorry, that's my alarm. So it's a great time saver for teachers. So really powerful, really simple add-on that saves a lot of time. And there's some screenshots in there to walk you through it. These are a couple of other Google Forms add-ons that you may want to take a look at. GMath is really great for the math teachers, and Check It Out is another really great add-on for the classroom. If you want to create like a checkout system for books or equipment. Okay, and if you have any, through this process or even before this presentation, if you have any great ideas for how you might use these add-ons, there's a link in here. I'd love to hear your ideas and your suggestions. And if any ideas you submit to this form will appear on my resource page here at the bottom to be shared with the world. Just be aware of that, but I'd love to hear your ideas on how you might use some of these add-ons, or if there's any other add-ons that you use in your classroom. Let me and the world know. And if you want to connect with me online, you can. My email address is there as well, so I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you guys may have about these add-ons or other add-ons. Besides that, I appreciate you guys joining me today for the Google EDU On Air conference, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Take care, and I'll see you guys on Twitter. Thank you, everyone. And sorry, I didn't get time to get to the Q&A, but I'll definitely address questions in there at the end of the conference today. Okay? Thanks, guys.